Hello and welcome to Panoramic Edition, where we discuss national, regional and international developments in depth. Since its establishment in 2015, the French Chamber of Commerce and Industry in Bahrain has been constantly working to further develop the business and economic relations between the Kingdom of Bahrain and the French Republic. As a member of the French Chambers of Commerce and Industry Abroad network, CT Bahrain International, which is one of the largest business networks in the world with a combined membership base of more than 33,000 companies, the FCCIB provides its members with a range of services and opportunities to ensure growth of businesses. To talk more about that, we are pleased to be joined here in the studio by the chairman of the French Chamber of Commerce and Industry in Bahrain, Mr. Jean-Christophe Durand, right after this. Welcome back. We are pleased to be joined here in the studio by the chairman of the French Chamber of Commerce and Industry in Bahrain, Mr. Jean-Christophe Durand. Thank you very much for being with us today.
Welcome.
Thank you. Sir, first off, you are a man that has a very long history in the Kingdom of Bahrain in many fields. But specifically today, we're here to talk about the establishment of diplomatic relations between the Kingdom of Bahrain and the French Republic, which enjoy outstanding cooperation in so many different fields in general, but specifically the business field. What can you tell us about these kinds of cooperations? What were the stages of development it went through?
So the business relationships between France and Bahrain have started long ago, much before even the establishment of diplomatic relationships. Actually, everybody talks about Jacques Cartier, the famous Cartier, coming to Bahrain in 1911, so over 100 years ago, to look for pearls at the time. But in fact, I learned recently that the King Louis Philippe in 1842 sent an envoy to Bahrain to explore potential business opportunity and building relationships. So it's a very long relationship, which has gone, as you mentioned, through different phases. But it's good to see that today France, in terms of business, has a strong position in the Kingdom of Bahrain.
Definitely. When it comes to the stages of building up the business enterprises or the French businesses in Bahrain, and Bahrain having a fertile business land, how did that happen? How did it start off?
I think France, like some other countries, I'm sure, took advantage of the various stages of development of Bahrain. For example, when the banking center was established in the 70s, a lot of French banks established a base in Bahrain to cover the whole region. And I worked for one of them, actually for two of them, Bank Indosuez and BNP Paribas, which have regional centers in Bahrain. So therefore, there have been a lot of opportunities for French companies to accompany the strategy of the country. I mentioned about banking, but aluminium as well. With Alba, you see French companies involved in supplying equipment and of course, buying aluminium from Bahrain and so forth. And as well, you've seen recently developments in the hospitality with a lot, tourism becoming one of the strategy of the country. And France has been very present in this field. The Agor Group is everywhere in Bahrain. And, so basically, you see French business accompanying the vision of the country and trying to position themselves in areas where they have strengths.
Absolutely. I mean, it's really good and amazing to see all of this progress and how it starts and how it has become, especially when we look at the targets, the national, as you've mentioned, the national SDGs and everything that comes with the vision of Bahrain and also the international visions when we look at it from that point of view. Somebody that plays a very big role in the business and the economic collaboration is actually the French Chamber of Commerce and Industry in Bahrain, the FCCIB. What can you tell us about its role in enhancing this mutual kind of cooperation?
At the French Chamber, we position ourselves as a gateway to bring French businesses to Bahrain, but also to support Bahrain businesses to explore the French market. So the idea of establishing a French Chamber is to take advantage of a huge network. We are part of a network of 125 chambers across the world and accessing 35,000 companies in France. So basically we can find partners for everybody here in Bahrain,
Yes.
but at the same time, knowing what the vision of the country is, what the strategy is, we can try to source, to attract companies which fit either from a trade point of view or establish themselves here for the region. So our role is really to be a hub, really a gateway to promote business, investments and trade between the two countries.
Absolutely. Having that role as not really a mediator, but somewhat in the middle that really collaborates or brings these collaborations together, it's very important to have the support of both countries when it comes to that, because there are a lot of policies that are put in way, especially with international standards when it comes to services, or it comes to companies, or it comes to businesses. So what can you tell us about the support of both countries when it comes to the cooperation between them?
I would say, maybe I'm a bit complacent, but I would say that the French Chamber is appreciated from both sides for different reasons. As I mentioned, we are a gateway, but we are also supporting companies. And why can we support companies? Because as you mentioned, we have partnerships with institutions which define the economic policy here or in France. So, for example, we work closely with EDB, which has a role in attracting companies here. We work closely with the Ministry of Industry and Commerce, which actually granted us a license. And of course, with the French embassy here and various French institutions here. But also in France, beyond the network of chambers, we've also established partnership with, for example, MEDEFI, which is a French business lobbying, international business lobbying group, which is very important because they are the one who bring French companies abroad. And we've signed a partnership with them before COVID, so at least 5-6 years ago.
Amazing.
And hopefully they'll be coming and bringing some French companies here early next year. So the partnership with this institution enables us first to understand what each party wants, but also to source ideas and identify potential targets.
Absolutely.
So we don't operate on our own. We operate within an ecosystem and very closely with the institution I mentioned.
On both sides, definitely. Another thing is that Bahrain's fertile business platform or arena or land in itself has a lot of potential. If we look at it, the growing economy in Bahrain actually offers a lot of investment opportunities within a supportive business environment designed to help companies flourish. These companies have already standing headquarters or areas in France and in different countries, but Bahrain actually provides it within the GCC and the Middle East, which is a very big market to tap into. Yes.
Well, personally, I've always been promoting Bahrain as a hub for the region. But I think that with reasons, not only because I'm Bahraini, but also for a reason. Because I think there are very important elements for a foreign company to consider when they establish themselves. Of course, a free economy is very important, but there are elements which are less visible, like for example the workforce. And one of the very strong competitive advantages of Bahrain are people. The ability to access qualified, skilled workforce. And this is something which has been very helpful, in particular in a sector which I know well, which is the banking sector, but elsewhere as well. And when I see French companies establishing here, they employ a lot of Bahrainis as well. So there is a fertile ground, as you say, here in Bahrain, and with a clear plan where French company can align themselves with, but also as a hub for the rest of the Gulf. And that's we're trying to promote as a French chamber, to position Bahrain as a platform with a bigger hinterland.
Absolutely. When you bring it up, the manpower and the standard of the manpower in Bahrain has also changed to cope with the changes of the millennia. So what can you tell us about that? Why is that important?
Well, this is important because in different sector, in all sector actually, rules evolve. Rules, objectives, skills evolve. And again, Bahrain has been able to adapt, first starting with a very strong base, but to adapt to new development. And for example, technology is very good with fintech, the digital transformation of the banking sector, but not only the banking sector. I mean, you look at the government, even a lot of government services has moved, evolved in the digital world. Yes. And I'm proud to say that some French companies are involved, like Thales, for example, for at the airport or for the ideas and so on.
Yes, exactly. The expertise are being used, and that actually makes Bahrain's business opportunities and also field more applicable or more approachable when it comes to having a business here.
Yes. And I think there is also the advantage of being a smaller country. So you can say, if you look at the glass half empty, you say, well, you know, it's not a big market. But what is very positive is the access to decision makers, the I would say welcoming of the people, and this is something which is very important for a new company. It's easy
to reach those people.
It's easy to make business in Bahrain.
Absolutely.
And I think that's what we are trying to also sell in France, is that it's easy for you to establish a presence in this country with a broader with a broader hinterland.
I think it also helps in reassurances when it comes to having or needing those when opening in a new country, in a new area, in a new region especially.
Yes, and I think rules are clear. Institutions also are accessible to get the necessary information. I was talking about the EDB, it could be the central bank for the financial sector, Ministry of Industry and Commerce, all of which are partner of the French Chamber. But this access facilitates the establishment of foreign companies.
Definitely agree. The FCCIB also offers a range of other services for Bahraini and French companies to further consolidate this mutual ties. You talked a little bit or tapped into them, but what can you tell us specifically about the services and why they're important, and how do you develop them?
So we are developing services with one goal, which is to promote these exchanges, as I mentioned. So to do that, we are trying to help companies. And helping companies, for example, some French companies could come, they need to have a better understanding of the market. We can do that. We can help them market surveys, we can provide them with access to certain companies, we can explain how the ecosystem works. We can also accommodate them in our premises. We have an incubator. We can have, I think, up to 10 companies. So they can come, set up, get a CR, set up here, and start their business. So that's a very popular service, because you see a lot of entrepreneurs who use it. Obviously, we are trying to supply services to Bahraini companies looking for partners in France, and there we use our I would say very large network, the CCIFI, which is a center in France, through the networks in France. So what we do as well is, on a different level, is I would say events where our members and their guests can meet over a topic. So we could have a minister, for example, a CEO of a company, or an expert, talking about a topic which is interesting for business. And we have this, I would say, connecting sessions. And it's also informal, so people can meet and can build relationships. And we are trying to do that on a regular basis with leaders here in Bahrain, but also trying from time to time to bring French business people when they pass through Bahrain. And I think that's an important added value for our members as well.
Definitely. How do you see the future of the services? What would you add if you would think about it clearly?
We have our business plan strategy meeting next week. So I think there are areas where we can probably do a bit more, like, for example, helping French companies establishing themselves here to hire people. So I would say an HR service, for example, that's something which we can do. What we could do as well is, and we have been planning that for some time, is to bring Bahraini businessmen delegations to France, to a region, for example,
Yes.
using our network.
Yeah.
So we would have access to a number of companies in a specific sector, in a specific region. So that's something we are also planning for the future, because we think it's quite important.
Definitely. When we look at the time that we are in now, Bahrain has always been a place where events happen in order to showcase things on the ground, what's happening in Bahrain, what is available, also for people to see more clearly the, let's say, eccentric diversity of things in Bahrain. We have events like Mara'i, we have the air show, we have Jewelry Arabia, all of these things. How does that fit in to the collaboration and supporting French companies to actually see Bahrain as a home for their companies?
So if we take the Jewelry Arabia, because this is happening now as we speak, the Chamber has been very active. We have actually established a French pavilion for the first time in 30 years. We worked on it over a year ago. The idea came at the time of before COVID, and obviously it was a bit postponed. But we've established now a pavilion called Pavillon France. So, and that it's not only to showcase French jewelry, but it's also to attract smaller jewelers from France to discover the Middle East. And this year it was a big success. First year, we managed to attract 11 companies. There are some, I understand, who were knocking at the door, but it was too late. And we're already thinking about next year to make it bigger, to have a bigger presence, because these smaller companies first discover a new market, Bahrain, then they discover the region, because there will be guests from Saudi, from UAE, etc. And some of them might say, we should establish a workshop, we should establish a school here. So it's a trigger for further investments in the country.
Absolutely, and also because these small companies, they come out with new visions and new concepts, especially when it comes to the jewelry industry, which is a very old field, but where also new topics and new ideas come out when you look at it that way. For those who want to become members at the FCCIB, what can you tell us about the procedures and what are the benefits of it?
Procedures are simple. You need to fill an application. We are trying to attract companies, Bahrainis, French, or even outside, who have an interest to meet our objectives, which is to boost the relationship, obviously. But we are very keen to attract members. We have about 100 corporate members. I would say 1/3 are French, 1/3 are Bahrainis, and 1/3 are based here, but not necessarily French or Bahrainis, but interested to participate in the trade flows or find partners and so on. So we are very keen. We are very keen to have big names, because it's important to show big names like, we have BNP Paribas, for example, we have Alba, companies which are flagships in their own country to show the importance of the chamber. But we are welcoming everybody. We have startups. We have members who are entrepreneurs from France, one person coming here. So it's quite eclectic. But the objective is really to work on this, growing this relationship.
How about the benefits of the members? Where do they stand when it comes to?
Well, the members, so there are a number of benefits which correspond to different categories of members. Now, smaller members who are coming from outside, they get facilitation, they get information, they get contacts, they get advice, they follow or not, but that's what. The large companies have visibilities. We can also provide contacts in France and elsewhere, and also it's a population which is interacting through the various events I am mentioning. And, so the benefit is really to increase business, to find opportunities, to learn something in a different field.
I mean, you also mentioned different things like having the incubator and having staff and the professionals there that actually know Bahrain's policies, Bahrain's rules when it comes to that, and helping out new companies with that. So that's one of the gooder points.
It's important to add value, and to add value you need to have a team which knows the country, and we don't know everything, but we have access to people who know. And when we have regular companies or different sectors coming, we can guide them, but we can also arrange meetings with decision makers who can guide them as well, which we do on a regular basis.
That's great.
And I would say a very important, I think, point, and I mentioned it already, but I think for people to understand, we are part of a network. It's not a standalone institution in Bahrain. It's an institution which is part of a huge network in France and abroad, and which also gives access to not only other companies, but in France, for example, decision makers as well. And I think that's something which is important. We can manage to organize meetings and have access for our members.
Exactly. If I understand it correctly, you have the ability to not only showcase things in Bahrain only, but also around the region, globally, because of that huge network that you have.
Exactly. And we work, for example, very closely with the chamber in Dubai. Because, there are many more French companies in Dubai, but they can refer companies to us. Companies established already in Dubai who want to explore new markets, and we've done that. We get referrals, and we work with them to try to convince these companies to come and work in Bahrain.
Yes, exactly, because Bahrain's market is different. It's
exactly,
similar, but it's different on a different kind of level. Well, as part of its efforts to take part and engage in global responsibility and sustainability, the FCCIB has launched the Sustainable Committee. That's a really big deal. What can you tell us about its role, and why is it so important?
Well, it is important because nowadays, and I mean, we should have thought about it earlier, but they say nowadays every company needs to have a sustainability plan.
Yes.
And some countries are ahead, some countries are catching up. But one thing which is interesting, both France and Bahrain are very focused on that. So that's one of the reasons we started this committee, because it's a topic which comes regularly in the conversations with our members. And it's a topic where we thought both countries can cooperate with different objectives, different landscapes, but with the will to become leaders in this area, this ESG, as we say. And we found out that we established 2 or 3 committees, but this one was important because everybody wanted to be part of it, because everybody has a story to tell. We have large French companies like BNP Paribas, which are world leader in ESG worldwide. And you have companies here in Bahrain which are doing a lot of efforts, and leader like Alba, for example. So every member, I'm mentioning these 2 names because obviously they are our top partners. And we found that we had no difficulties to finalize a very large committee, and everybody had very interesting stories to tell, exchanging, potentially working together. We had a meeting, we brought the board, we met the minister, Her Excellency Noor Al-Khalaf, to explain what we were doing, and she also made a speech to our members. So we want to work also with the government here to see through our contribute. Our members have feedback to give, have ideas to give, and for example, when you establish legislations and rules, obviously the private sector is an important element. They need, so that's one channel, and also obviously we want to tap on the expertise of some very large French companies, which could be replicated here. And I mentioned about BNP Paribas, but there are many of our members who, which could,
these are also the bar setters. They're the ones that set the bar.
And they would be ready, I'm sure, to come and cooperate here and work with. And they have done. I mean, it's not that they are willing. The ones which are here are already doing it.
Yes, definitely. We're looking forward to more of that. The FCCIB also has a keen interest to organize various events. You've mentioned some of that. But how about the events? How do they change? How do the concepts, the topics change with the change of the business arena, whether here in Bahrain or in France?
Well, usually when we discuss among the members, we look at topics which are of interest to a majority. So it could be a project in Bahrain, it could be a theme, it could be a specific sector, for example. And we are trying to select the right speaker and to deliver a speech and then answer questions. So that we are trying to answer questions from our members, right, or specific, I would say, immediate concern or specific immediate opportunities. Right. So it's not an established calendar, it's more answering questions.
And coming up with topics or with the
exactly,
people
yes,
as you go. That's good to see. For the first time in 30 years, the FCCIB is organizing the first edition of the French Pavilion at the Julia Arabia, as you have mentioned. What kind of work went into creating this pavilion? What were your expectations, and how are they? How are you seeing the outcomes up till now?
So it was a lot of work. It's a lot of work because there are a lot of partners involved, obviously locally, but in France, through institutions to identify the right potential exhibitors. So it's work which has started over a year ago to get all the approvals, to ensure that we get the financing, because that's also something which is important, to get the right format, right size. And we had, interestingly, some of our members, 2 French companies established here, who helped us to build it. One architect and one designer. So
that's amazing.
So it was really a French pavilion built by French companies here. But we didn't know what to expect. We knew, obviously, Julia Arabia, and we knew it was important because of the place of France in the jewelry sector. But we wanted to add, beyond the large brands, we wanted to bring younger, smaller companies. And the opening was yesterday. I think it was great. We are the only foreign pavilion. Of course, there are a lot of foreign brands everywhere. But Pavilion France with and that was very important. We had the visit of His Royal Highness, short visit to visit, and he was happy to see France. That was his comment. France represented as a country as opposed to just a brand. Yes, and the fact that we managed to bring young entrepreneurs.
Absolutely, with the change of everything in all fields, as you've mentioned before, having young companies like that coming in is also a sign for what the future will bring. So what would you do next year? How would you change? What would you make differently in next year's edition of Jewelry Arabia, if you have a little bit of an idea?
I think we'll make it bigger. I think we'll make it bigger because it was good to hear that some people couldn't be accommodated. And I was impressed by the reaction of the people who came. They didn't know Bahrain. Obviously, they are smaller companies, so they don't travel very much. But what is interesting is that the institution who identified them, called France Éclat, didn't know Bahrain, but knew about this Jewelry Arabia. And now they've seen it. So they realize it's big, it's important. And all these smaller companies are very interested to come back. They already say, we want to be back. So to answer your question, we need to make the pavilion bigger.
Yes, but really looking forward to it. I mean, it's on for a time now, and then hopefully next year we have more people to come. Before we end today's episode, Mr. Durand, we would like to know, how do you see the future of Bahraini and French cooperation in the economic and business fields in general, not just jewelry, let's say all of the fields together?
I'm very optimistic because there are a lot of actors who are keen to grow this business. It's not only the chamber. We have on both sides ambassadors who are working very hard to bring their respective companies to increase the exchanges. There is I would say a strong also support from EDB, from the authorities, and of course this region has been growing, Bahrain has been growing. There is a plan, there are investments which are going to be done, so there is room for French companies. And we know on the other side that Bahrainis like to travel to France, they like to partner with French companies. So we see generally the business growing between the two countries in the coming years. We will be a small tool among the others, but it's on the the momentum is there. It's already strong, but we can make it stronger.
Definitely. What are the fields that you see have a future when it comes to the cooperation between both countries? Something that is here or minimally, or that's not here yet, but you see in the future will be a big place?
I think quite a lot, because there are different angles. We talked a lot about technologies,
yes.
Certainly, fintech and so on. That's definitely an area where France has a strong position and where we could be more present, for example. We talked about tourism, and we have seen already the Accor Group investing massively in the country. And again, with all the developments which are happening in the south of the islands, there is room for more French presence.
Big success.
Now, from another angle, as I mentioned earlier, Bahrain is a good base for the region. So I would say mid-size French companies, manufacturing companies, could establish a plant and a manufacturing facility here for the rest of the region. So that's also an area we need to push. And there is also, I would say, within the Vision 2030, the willingness to attract manufacturing industries. So that's something also we'll be looking at. So it's not one sector; it's in general. I think what really one of our mission is to increase the awareness in France about the advantages of Bahrain, and which we are trying to do directly through the chamber or through the network or some of our French partners.
There's so much potential and so much success. Thank you very much for being with us today. And
it was a pleasure and it was an honor.
Thank you very much for talking to us more about this and putting the dots sort of where they belong. Thank you, Mr. Durand.
Thank you.
And we would also like to thank you, dear viewers, and we will see you next week in another episode of Panoramic Edition.